going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Nate and Brian here, the Warriors of Light podcast, and we're back.
Hey, you guys. Good to be back, buddy. Good to be back.
It's been a long time.
Yeah. It's been it's a little sabbatical so we could go through some growth that, the universe said, hey, you guys need to step away and do a few things, and then I'll let you come back.
But yeah, I want to touch on kind of what we were just talking about is the growth that we've been going through. So for those of you who don't know, me and Brian are different parts of the country, but we're always going through the same coinciding things. So we were just talking off camera about growth and about how when you actually embrace growth, like I was thinking about, we were talking about who you were versus who you are now. So Brian, I don't know if you want to put in a little information about that concept and maybe how it's helped you, because we have some updates to give people about why we haven't been recording.
Yeah, well, obviously, like, we've had life changes go on. Well, for me, it's been more, I guess, personal, spiritual, those types of things. I got busier in some coaching stuff, coaching some sports and things like that. But that's not taking me away from this. It's literally like, for me, it's been more growth, like I've shared with you. And I shared on our podcast a while back when I stopped like consuming alcohol. And so that's now been going on almost 5 months. And the thing is it's been great. Like, just removing anything from my life that I know was really just disturbing my connection to the divine, which is what I feel. I feel like all those things, any substance, any addiction, anything like that is, even though I wasn't drinking all the time, doing those things, it was still more than needed to be. Definitely caused things in my life. But when I look at things in my life where I made dumb decisions, guess what? Alcohol was involved pretty much 99.9% of the time. So, hey, should have figured that lesson out a long time ago, which I kind of knew it and felt it for a long time, but just kind of kept holding on to that crutch. But with that being gone and moving forward in this life, I have this relationship I've been in now for, like I said, 6 months, going on almost 7. And it's been pretty good. It's been so much growth. That's been an area of my life where I've struggled a lot, was with relationships, because I had hurts from when I was young that I experienced. Didn't realize, obviously, those traumas and those things really affected me the way they did, but they were, in a sense, in the way of me really having a healthy relationship. So in this relationship, I have a partner who has also been through very similar things. Plus, on top of that, she has stuff from her parents. So, she's, and other things. And so she has a lot of things she's had to work through. So we've been growing together and experiencing a lot of growth in a very short period of time, a lot of healing, a lot of realizations and epiphanies of why we've been struggling for so long, why these things have affected our lives in relationship and just as a whole. And we're able to like now see things more clearly. Not that we're fully healed, we're still going through the process, but it's actually, there's been so much growth in such a short period of time, which has allowed me to also see myself and my life as a whole and have an even clearer picture, right? It's like the veil has been lifted even more. And so just understanding that even these challenges that have been handed to me are all there for my benefit, for me to grow and become my highest and best version. Same thing for her. And then at the end of the day, we get to impact the collective, the whole, with the lessons we've learned, right? We get to help everybody kind of see things through a clearer lens. So lots of changes gone on in a very short 6 months. So it's been very good. And I know you've experienced a ton of change and a ton of moving from one state and back to another. So you have some interesting things that have gone on. Why don't you share that?
Oh man, let me how do I summarize this? So basically, the last few months, part of the reason why this is the first episode we've recorded in a while is because I went through some life changes. It's interesting because over the last year or so, my relationship with God has become a lot closer, and it took some trials to do that. So basically, me and my wife were wanting to move to Virginia to be closer to family. So I took a leap of faith and I left my job in North Carolina to go work a job in Virginia. But the catch was my family had to stay back in North Carolina for now. So I took a leap of faith to go out there, try to make the best of it. Wasn't working out. My wife wasn't having a good time at all. She was struggling. And this was during the holidays, so right in between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So it was tough. And then through my meditation, through prayer, through talking to God, I was like, I was praying, like, send me, basically, I wanted to go back home. So I took another leap of faith without anything solid lined up as far as work goes. And then I left my job and came back home for my family because that's what's most important. So, and then what's miraculous about that is that within 3 weeks, I had a new job. That's way better than anything I've had since I got out of the military. So, uh, basically, that's a very summarized version. But what I learned from that is, one, to always have faith, and two, like, be grateful, because no matter, because for me and my family at that time, it seemed like a dark period, especially for my wife. But as soon as I came back home, it was like this, the energy changed as soon as I walked through the door. So like to the point where my wife was even like looking sickly. My parents were here, so she was having like health issues, which I kind of thought were more energetic, spiritual type things, which I still think that they were. But there's also real medical stuff that goes along with that. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that everything changed. The energy in the house changed when Dad got home. So, but it's not only because of me; it's because of God, and like the faith and the love. So that's really what I learned, is like, we really do, number one, have a loving God, and number two, take a leap of faith, even when in the human mind nothing makes sense, because I'm like, oh, I have no job. Am I making the right choice? But I had full faith, full trust in God, the universe, and now here I am. And there's a lot of growth in that period too, because it was like a trial that tested my resolve and faith, and came out the other side a better person. Like, even like that, there's no, like, I've changed a lot. Like, there's almost no anger, like, ever. There's even, and because of my changes, it's changed the people around me, like my son, my wife, even my parents who don't live with me. But slowly yet surely, that's why I'm like, okay, God, speak through me help others, and let's go from there. So it was a little bit of a wild ride for a second, but we made it through.
It's awesome. So it sounds like you've experienced, I would say, one big thing is surrender, right? Surrendering to the unknown, which is
Yeah.
living, in my opinion, by true faith, because you don't know, like, you leaving jobs and these worldly things, right? And stepping into that unknown, trusting that it's always going to be taken care of, is something I speak of frequently. As I tell people, be okay with stepping into something like you feel inspired to take action in something, even if you're like, I have no idea how this is going to work out. The thing I've learned is that the how and the when, not up to me. What's up to
Mm-hmm.
me is, okay, like, how do I, like, I'm feeling this thing that I'm inspired to do, that I believe is going to hopefully inspire others and impact others in a positive way. Like, how do I go into it with complete surrender and just say it's all going to work out, right? So you've experienced surrender, it sounds like, and it sounds like you've also experienced some enlightenment, right? Because you're seeing life from a different lens. You're seeing things in a more peaceful manner, which I firmly believe, even when we go through challenge, it's not easy, quote unquote, easy in the human aspect of things. But even when we go through challenge, how can we slow down and step back and be like, oh, you know what? This is all working out for my highest good, and ultimately for the highest good of all, right? That's the thing I do. I mean, like I said, going through the relationship challenges, that's been a big area for me. And being able to, like, slow down and look at it and be like, I know this is here for my growth. God, what are you showing me? And literally sometimes almost instantaneously receiving a download of, you need to learn this from this. Oh, okay, cool. Or an area where I'm like, hey, I thought I had it pretty dialed in. And then a challenge, poses itself to me, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, I have more work to do in that area. Yeah, I really don't have that mastered yet.
Dude,
I'm
that's exactly right. Because I thought the same thing. I was like, oh, spiritually I'm good. Like, I know how this works. And then God will be like, no, you don't. you're not picking up what I'm really trying to teach you. So like, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I did, because even kind of like what you told me when we first met is that surrender aspect. Like, we make, as humans, we think we have control, we want control over everything. We make all these plans, and God's like, no, nope. So it's interesting because I prayed to get the job in Virginia so I can get my family there, and God was like, fine, I'll show you. And I was there for maybe a month. And but like you said, like, surrender. So God kind of was like showing me, like, yeah, this is what you want, but it's not going to work out this way. So then I took that other leap of faith, came back and completely surrendered. And I was like, whatever you want me to do, show me. Not like that, but I would be in my truck before I went into work when I was in Virginia praying, like, guide me, help me, help my family. And like, that surrender aspect is huge, because we think that we need to control everything, and that if you don't do XYZ, then this isn't going to happen. But that's where faith comes in. Surrender is faith, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The thing I always say is the only control I firmly believe that we have is of our own actions and what we do. So like when we're handed something that we're inspired to do, are we going to take action on it? How are you each day going to be a better and higher version of yourself, right? So like I look at things each day and say, if there was a situation yesterday that I can improve upon today, let me do so. Or just let me just continue to grow and become a better and better version of myself. Let me respond in peace, let me respond with compassion, let me have patience and understand that everything is working together for our highest good in its own divine time, which is not our man-made time, right? And so it's living truly by faith. Just like I have no idea what's going to happen in the future, because the future does not exist right now. So I'm really practicing and learning to live in the present moment. And it's the whole, like, one of my spiritual mentors, Ram Dass, he wrote the book Be Here Now, and that's one of the things, that's one of the phrases he say all the time is be here now. That's a mantra he used, be here now, because that's all you got, right? We have right now, this moment. And so how can I make this moment the very best moment? How can I look at this moment and have an attitude of gratitude? I can look around at everything and be like, wow, everything actually is working out really well. It's all working out for me. I have everything I need and then some, right? How can I use the gifts I've been given to go serve more people? And literally just live in gratitude and faith each moment, which again, we're told that we need to have full control. We constantly need to be making things happen. We need to go hustle and grind, which at the end of the day, it's no, you don't just sit on the couch and do nothing, but you take inspired action, right? And you take action that is moving you forward, actually moving the needle forward. So what are you doing? Are you meditating? Are you working out? Are you praying? Are you journaling? Are you eating better? Are you doing things that are actually like mind, body, and soul, making your energetic frequency out to the universe, to God, like that much more powerful? So God's like, cool, I can now use you for so much more because you're a better version of yourself. You don't have to be perfect. You just got to be working toward a better version of yourself, right? And like you said, they have the faith to be able to step into things that are unknown. And then one thing I wanted to touch on, you said, God will say, hey, God, I think this is the best thing for me right now. I believe that's the whole free will aspect where God's like, perfect, go ahead and try that. and then, when you see like, oh, wow, that didn't work out. God's like, yeah, I was going to let you go. I'd let you go try it because you think that was going to be best for you. But at the end of the day, there's a greater plan for you. Just trust it. Right. Take the inspired action. Don't take action out of fear, out of worry, out of like forcing things, because again, everything, like I've said a million times, when you force, you're causing a counter force. At the end of the day, we just have to trust that everything is working out in divine time, which divine time is not man-made time, right? So just let things happen and just take that inspired action and watch things actually fall together as opposed to falling apart, right? So
you know what else? Yeah, definitely, because another thing that, I mean, it relates to the exact thing, is like, number one is, there's, be still, or be still and know that I am God, which means God is always looking out for your highest good. Number two is, don't focus on worldly things. So just like what you said, like we've talked about this in other previous episodes, where it's like, oh, I'm a doctor, I have a college degree, all this other stuff. It's like, because of this process I've gone through, now I'm inspired to get my master's in divinity and see where that leads me to share more of this type of information with people. Like, hey, we really don't have control over anything but our actions and what we think. And to try to help people get out of that constant mindset of fear, because that's what everything is based off of, a fear-based mindset. When we could just really just be like, okay, I don't really have control over everything, so let me just sit back, relax, and flow.
Yeah. Perfect segue into flow. Yeah, flow, right? Flow state's where we're supposed to be all the time. We're supposed to be sitting in flow at all times, right? So it's like it's trying to find that state where you're not trying to make things happen, you're allowing things to happen, but yes, you are taking the steps you need to take. Um, you know, you see people like professional athletes, when they're seeming like Michael Jordan seemed to be playing basketball effortlessly. Well, because he was always in flow when he played, right? He wasn't trying to make it happen. He was allowing it to happen. He knew that was a gift he had. So he was out there on the court and just flowing with the universe, right? And that goes for every aspect of our life. I think when we live in flow, no matter what part of your life you're looking at, and you trust that things are working out, and you trust that that we live in a friendly universe, you do see things come together. Even when it looks like there's chaos going on in the world, those things that are going on are actually put there purposefully, right? They're allowed to have happen purposely because we're supposed to be learning stuff from these things. But
That's a very good point, because just to touch on that real quick, is me and my wife are watching this other podcast about, they're talking about World War III and all this stuff, and my wife is like, you know what that is? That's a worldly thing. So why are we focusing on all this stuff? Even war, or even what governments do. Powers and principalities. They say in the Bible that they don't have power. It's all allowed to happen by the Creator just to teach us something.
Absolutely, there's a lesson in everything. There's a lesson in everything.
I've learned is like, kind of like what you said, is don't take everything so seriously, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and when you look at things, it's like definitely try to make the greatest impact you can while you're here. Try to be a light that to the world and to everyone around you. But at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, like laugh. Why do like some of these spiritual figures like Buddhas and different things, like they have like a smile on their face or laughing, because it's, don't take everything, like you said, so damn seriously. Don't take everything so to heart. Like understand that everything's happening just the way it's supposed to, even if it looks horrible. Understand there's a purpose behind it. I look at things now that's like, you read a story and it sounds like, man, I can't believe that thing happened. I look at it like, okay, but what could possibly come from this? I feel for the people that are involved in it, their families that are involved in it, all those types of things. But at the end of the day, like what could this be teaching that person, all of us? I mean, at the end of the day, we're all collective. It's all coming together. So, we're all here to learn and grow and expand. And the more we learn to understand that, we realize that everything is actually working cohesively for us, right? To become a better version of ourselves. It's just very easy to be distracted, because that's what the world does, is throw distractions at us, right? Use these substances, do these things, watch more TV, freaking go buy more crap, like do all these things to keep you supposedly entertained, to get that little quick dopamine hit. And at the end of the day, there's like this whole big thing going on behind the scenes, energetically and spiritually, and you're missing all of it because you're distracted by all the nonsense that actually isn't leading you anywhere, right? And so that's like you were saying about the worldly aspect of things. Why tell people, why do you watch the news? If you briefly need to skim something just to see maybe what's going on in the world, go for it. But I'm like, don't dive into these news stories and things, because they are there to keep you distracted. They're there to take away your energy and take away where your focus is, when really your focus should be going toward, if you want to make a difference in the world, be the difference. And then when you feel inspired to take action or to create a organization or to do something that's going to make an impact, then do it, right? But don't focus on these stories and be like, oh my gosh, look at these people are ridiculous. Well, now you're just feeding that negative energy. So why are you focused on that? Leave that alone.
Well, it's because it's so easy to revert back to the monkey mind and to the ego, because we're programmed that way. So like, even judging people, it's like, you're not supposed to do that.
No,
like, it doesn't matter what it is.
No.
But it's so hard to not do that sometimes. But there's so many people that are probably watching this right now, like, oh, I don't believe anything or whatever, or I don't believe in a God, or I don't believe in all this stuff. Life is what you make it. And I'm like, that's your right to believe that. But at the end of the day, like from my own experience, I know that there's a God, 100%, because I wouldn't be who I am now without going through the things I went through and experiencing the things I went through. So like a big part of that is like that flow state and like letting go of the ego, because we're like, I'm in control, I need to do this, I have power. That's that survival mindset. That's that I, me. And we're not here just for me. We're here for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's an aspect that I believe we're all intended to grow into, which not everybody does, is that, when you're young, you're in survival mode. What do I got to do to survive, learn, grow, expand? But as you continue to learn, grow, expand, how do you pull away from the I and go into the we, right? Like, how can I help all of us instead of what's in it for me? I really feel like I'm at a place of looking at what's actually in it for the all and for the collective, as opposed to what's in it for me. Thankfully, thank God, I've learned to release a lot of the desires of the world that they throw at me, and not really worry so much about that. And actually, like, I want to see how I can get out there and be in nature consistently, how I can be out there doing things that are going to help people, help animals, help the planet, whatever the case is, right? Like, what can I do to continuously go out and serve and love others in a better way? One of the things I consistently pray for now on a regular basis is I tell God, show me to love how you love and to think how you think. And not think like as a human made way, but like show me like how to focus on things the way God does, right? How can I love the way God does? So that means unconditionally, like you said, without judgment. So if I catch myself getting ready to try to judge, no, pull that back, man. Like, you don't need to be focused on any of that, because at the end of the day, everybody is beautiful and unique in their own way. And even the people that are doing things that look like atrocities, right? Like, at the end of the day, they're doing that for whatever reason. That's their own journey. It's part of their journey. And whatever karma they create with that, that's up to them, right? But at the end of the day, like you said, everybody has a right to believe there's no God, to believe there's nothing. I see too many synchronicities in my life. I can look at things and be like, wow, these, 50 things had to come together for this one thing to happen. And I'm like, that's pretty amazing. So how is that people say coincidence? I'm like, no, coincidence is just a mathematical term that sees two things that coincide, so they go together, right? So that means these two things came together to bring you to where you are. I'm like, so at the end of the day, I mean, hey, you have the right to believe whatever you want to believe. Like I tell people, I love you just the way you are. Believe what you want to believe. I believe there's a great creator. I think I know for a fact there's definitely a God. So, I encourage people that still are skeptical about that to kind of just dive a little deeper and just even review their life and see how things that look horrible worked out. And you'll start to think a little bit differently.
Well, you see, that's what's interesting, because I agree with you 100%. But like what you just said is like everyone's journey is their own.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not here to push any belief system on anybody. We're not
Nope.
here to make you believe anything. It's up to you to find that for yourself. That's all God wants, is for you to make a relationship with him. But but because we have free will, we're going to run around our life. Like I tell my wife, I'm like, it's taken me 33 years to get to this point, not just the last year. It's taken me my entire life to get to where I am now. Like I told you the other day on the phone, where sometimes I'll reflect and it's almost like a life review, where I'll think about moments where God was like trying to be like, hey, I'm over here, but I was ignoring it because I was young. I was in my ego. But something I found the other day, and this is perfect to sum up kind of what we're talking about, is it's in order to even begin to understand what's going on in the world right now, you have to be open to the idea of unlearning almost everything you were taught.
Yeah.
Because, like, for me, what's worked for me And again, this is not pushing anything on anyone, and I've been sharing reels and stuff, but I've developed my relationship with Jesus. That's what has worked. That's what's really changed me, just like you were talking about, with like, how can I act as you would act? How could I be as you are? I kind of do the same thing. When I wake up in the morning, like I told you, I wake up early before work, I pray, I meditate, and I'm like, let me be as you are. Let me be, loving, peaceful, and help others who need it, like every day. But a lot of people get so focused on their programming throughout their life that they never take the step back. Kind of like what I said with the life review kind of thing is kind of what I would describe it as, is like, think back on moments in your life. That's what's happened to me. It's like, ever since I've been going on this enlightened path, I was like, oh, these are little moments. Like, oh, I was at a McDonald's and this guy was trying to talk to me about God, but I wasn't paying attention. Or I was in Afghanistan and this guy I never saw again was talking to me, and all this crazy stuff. That sounds crazy, but like, take a step back and review your life. Review yourself. Am I truly living to be my highest good, or am I just feeding an addiction, or am I just doing this because someone else told me to? Think that's what's been lost, I think, in society as far as the spiritual realm goes. Question things, think for yourself, and you will find that the answers will come to you. Do your own research.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a mind open to everything and attached to nothing, right? It's that concept that Wayne Dyer spoke of on a regular basis. And I have adopted that over the last several years, and it's definitely shown me a lot more than I ever knew. And, broaden my horizons and help me learn from all different avenues and understand that, yeah, like we are being spoken to consistently, like you said, in all different areas, in the McDonald's, in Afghanistan, in everything. That's what I've done too, is look back on my life and like, wow, I was literally being handed direction consistently on a regular basis. I was just missing it because I was so lost and enamored by the things that the shiny things that the world was throwing at me that actually had no meaning or purpose. You know what I'm saying? And so, it's definitely something that I've done, is slow down a lot. And just, I'm very aware of things that are coming in front of me, conversations, email, text, it doesn't matter. It could be anything. And someone's just like trying to communicate to you or asking for you to communicate to them. And it's like you said, I mean, letting God speak through you. I mean, I do that a lot, is just slowing down, having a conscious conversation with somebody. Because at the end of the day, I believe I'm here to help people expand their consciousness and open up their hearts and open up their minds. Like you said, go beyond, transcend their limiting beliefs that basically they put upon themselves or someone else put upon them, right? Like, hey, you only have this much power. This is all you can do. At the end of the day, God gave you unlimited power internally, and all the answers are within. So when you get quiet, like through meditation, and you get still, you start to hear things and you're like, oh, okay, cool. I can go do this now. I feel like I'm inspired to make this change or take this action. And then you start to see things unfold, and then you start to feel in that flow, and then life starts to feel like it's actually has purpose, right? For a person who's going to a job every day they don't love, they're doing it because they were told you need to go have this career and make this money and pay these bills. But they don't know why none of that is fulfilling. It's because you're not actually doing what your soul is put here to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I tell people, listen deeply inside. What is it that you feel like you're really here to do? And whatever it is, even if it seems outlandish to the rest of the world, to your family, to whoever, follow that fire, like feed that, fuel that fire, because you're going to see it unfold the way it's supposed to. And you're going to end up being, right where you're supposed to be. And you're going to end up waking up each day being like, I know I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people are not doing that.
Well, I think a big part of it too is everything. We talked about this before, but now, like, on top of everything we have talked about, every time, all of these things that are in our lives are just distractions.
Mm-hmm.
Like what you were saying about, oh, buy all this stuff. Why? Or let me watch this news, or it's all a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
You're being distracted from working on your true self and what God wants us to do, which is to love each other, be peaceful, and help each other.
Absolutely.
And not argue and fight and cause wars and chaos and That's not God. That's the negative energies of the world that are like, oh yeah, let me see. And don't get me wrong. Yes, I've gone through my process of enlightenment, but there's still when you go through the process of enlightenment, that doesn't mean the negative energies are going to just go away. They're still going to try to get in there and mess with your mind. Like there's this quote that says the greatest battle that will ever be fought will be on the battlefield of your mind. So if you are constantly worldly and thinking of all these things that are material, or oh, if I have this much money, this car, this house, whatever, none of that matters at the end of the day. What matters is how you are as a human and as a spirit having a human experience. That's all it
Absolutely.
is.
Absolutely.
But it's so easy for people to get distracted, wrapped up, and right back to square one, you know?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Like I said, I was blessed, in an early state of this journey to be able to obtain all those things, the new cars, the new homes, the relationship I thought I wanted, whatever. And at the end of the day, I always wondered why there was like that still missing part, right? Like something was missing. Well, the missing part was me going inside and actually looking at what was truly important. And then, following those gifts, those passions, and doing those things to go out and serve others. There's nothing wrong if you receiving things like those material things as you're serving and doing what you're here to do. But I think what happens as you do receive them, you give them less and less importance when you understand the deeper purpose of being here, right? So now when things do come, I'm grateful for them, but I give way less importance to them.
Yeah, because like there's something else I heard where, if you're captured by like addictions or anything, addiction could be anything. It could be shopping, it could be alcohol, it could be freaking eating food. There's a great quote that said, if you're having all these compulsive thoughts and behaviors, it was talking about God, and it's like that's not from the Holy Spirit. That's from, to quote unquote, the enemy, right? Like when your behaviors and what you do controls you with those things, those distractions, you're and like I've talked about, like it's easy to not even realize that's happening. So I guess kind of like what you said is start meditating, start having quiet time. And when you have those thoughts of, oh, I need this, why do you need it? Is it because you truly want it, or are you trying to fill a void in your life?
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. For sure. Yep. It's slowing down and looking inside and looking at what's truly important. Like you said,
but
we're
like,
spiritual, energetic beings having a human experience. Look deeper.
but but yeah, that's like these last few months have just been a learning curve for the better. So now, like that's another thing too, is like what we're talking about, where you have a plan or you want something or whatever. Sometimes, like people will be like, I pray to God for this, but he didn't give it to me. It's like, no, he'll give you all the ingredients, but you got to make the cake, you know? So, um, what I'm trying to say is that sometimes when like we talked about before, that idea of asking you shall receive, there's going to be a learning process in that. It's like, yeah, you're going to ask for a better job, but then you also have to be, if you have the awareness, you're going to be like, okay, what do I have to change about myself to also not let my ego get in the way?
Absolutely.
That makes sense?
Yeah. It's the growth. It's the growth that I believe the universe intends for us to continuously be doing, is becoming again a higher and higher version of who we are, because the higher version that we are is going to be better used to go out and make a difference. Right. And so the more we shift the ego based ways of thinking, quiet the ego, and then you hear the spirit. Right.
Or even maybe sometimes not even just ego, like anxiety or when you're depressed. all the same rule applies. Like, why am I anxious? Why am I depressed?
Yeah.
And it gives you that time to slow down and think back, like, oh, this really isn't like me and my wife were talking actually earlier today. It's like we should like so many people live and they define themselves from their circumstances. But what happens isn't who they are. It's just a part of life.
Absolutely.
So like, oh, I got a flat tire. Oh, I guess I'm a crappy person because it's so easy to downgrade yourself, right? And talk bad about yourself. So it just goes back to don't take everything so seriously into heart because actually my wife's been reading this book about your heart and your mind and how the eyes are more like cameras than like receivers. So she was talking about the relationship between the mind and the heart and like if you see something like if you're driving down the road you see something and you see trees, you see cars, it doesn't your brain is like whatever. But then she brought up the example of this guy saw a car that's similar to her girlfriend's in the car with another guy and in his heart he's like, is that really my girlfriend? It wasn't, but our mind, if we're not aware, can play tricks on us and those negative thoughts can just seep in a second.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. That's the mind, man. The mind can easily play games. That's what I tell people. 99% of what we worry about never comes true.
Yeah, like worrying about something isn't going to change the situation.
Not
It's
going
just
to
going
change
to
the outcome.
it's just going to take your peace. That's all it
Absolutely.
does.
That's why I tell people all the time, and including remind myself of, is don't worry about the outcomes of things. The outcome is none of my business. So
Yeah,
you
it's
know.
all it's already worked out
Mm-hmm.
anyway. Like
Absolutely. Absolutely.
the whole like my whole Virginia trip thing. You know, when I took those leaps of faith, I had no idea what was going to happen. For the first, actually, I would dare say for the first time in my life, that's the first time I truly took a leap of faith without knowing the outcome, without having a real plan. And
Yeah.
what's interesting about where I am now is it was the last day to apply to that position. And when I started, they were like, you broke the mold. This is the fastest this process has ever gone for anyone. Because the type of job I applied for, it takes months to get.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about that and I was like, thank you, God,
It
because
was all part of the plan, buddy. It was all part of the
yeah,
plan.
yeah. So that made me feel good. Like, okay, all right, Roger that. Moving forward.
That's the evidence of that the things that are supposed to work out will, and the ones that aren't won't. And honestly, like when they don't, it's because you're just being protected or moved away from something that's not part of your journey, right? That's why I always tell people when a thing, a person, whatever is taken away from your life, understand that that thing or that person, that their season in your life is over. Its season in your life is over. It's
Yeah,
okay. It may be hard because a relationship ends or whatever, a career you've been in for 20 years. It's okay though, because it's not supposed to be there anymore. There's something greater to come. There's more for you to do. Open your heart up to it, and you'll see these magical, beautiful things start unfolding because you're open and willing to see the change, right? You keep changing, you allow the things around you to change. You're like, oh, like this is only helping me. This is amazing. This is beautiful. It's again surrender.
but you
Stop
see,
trying to
yes,
control everything.
exactly. Because in our human mind, we're like, how could this even be possible? We can't. In the human mind, we can't fathom it because it's greater than our own perception of everything.
Because our human mind seems a very sees and not seems but sees a very narrow view, and that's why I tell people with when you look at it from a divine view, there's nothing's impossible. So step
Yeah.
back and just be like, all right, God, you go ahead and make the magic happen. I know for a fact that if I take this step, there's going to be a bunch of crazy stuff that happens. It's going to be like, wow, look at how this all came together. Look how I'm doing exactly what I was meant to do, and I love what I'm doing every moment because you actually were willing to not try to have everything planned in your human mind, because your human mind can only see such a narrow view, right?
Mm-hmm. And that's what that I guess that's maybe one word of advice I would give to people is also be wary of the people around you when you're like, I'm going to go do this. And sometimes their mind will be like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. You're just going to go move to Utah or something and start fresh or whatever the situation is. Like other people will also try to be like, this might not be what's best for you. And it's like, how do you know what's best for me? I'm me, you're not me. So what I'm trying to say is don't let other people influence your decision making all the time.
Absolutely. Such a good point, and I completely agree with you. I always tell people, like, who you're around and who you're influenced by, um, and who you're not, they're both equally important, right? So surround yourself with people that are like happy for you and want to see you lifted up and want to see you move forward. These other folks might have a good intention in their mind, but they're projecting their own limitations upon you and trying to hold you back from what you could go do. And that's why I say there are no limitations. We self-impose our limitations. We can literally do pretty much anything we want and go anywhere we want and do the things we want to do. But it's by choice, and it's by not living in fear, right? It's by living in love and living in faith and understanding, like you just said. We can literally make a decision tomorrow, and like, I'm going to go move to this different state, this different country, whatever it is, because I feel it divinely inside of me. And everybody in your immediate circle might look at you and be like, what are you doing? That doesn't make any sense. I can't believe you're going to do that. That has nothing to do with them. It's literally, what are you feeling? Yeah, that deep burning desire inside of you. That's what you need to follow.
Well, you know what's funny is that's exactly a part of that process. That's what I learned. It was like I knew it, but it was in practice. So like when I made the decision, like I'm going back home. Like I was staying with my in-laws, and the night before, actually that I was going to do it that morning before I went to work. I had this overwhelming, I can't even explain it. Like you can call it intuition, I don't know. Every part of my being, like even on a physical, it was weird. I've never experienced it like this before. Physically, I felt like I need to go home. Like I don't even know
Mm-hmm.
how to describe that to anybody
Mm-hmm.
because it was just weird. And then I was kind of concerned about telling my in-laws because the plan was to move the family there to be closer to family. And then that night, the reason why I didn't end up doing it that day is because, the monkey mind kind of got in, but I was like, let me check with my wife first so that I'm not making a decision just by myself. I know God is telling me to do this, but I don't know. I felt like I should tell or ask my wife first before we just made a family changing decision. You know what I mean? Um, so then, like, I was literally going to walk in that morning and be like, I got to go. And then later, the next day, I went home because you could say it was divinely guided because every part of my soul, every part of like, I felt it in my arms and my legs and my body. I don't even know how to describe that to someone. It was just like this overwhelming feel. I've never had a feeling like that where your whole body is like, do this thing. You know how you say intuition? Like when I think of intuition, I used to think about it as mental. Um, but that's the first time I felt it that powerfully throughout my whole body. Like every fiber of my being was like, go, go. And then I ended up doing it the next day, but I was afraid to tell my in-laws, but by the grace of God, they were perfectly fine. They understood because
Yep.
my wife was really having like issues medically, and thank God she is okay. But even because it's my wife's mother, she's like, well, if something does happen, you wouldn't be able to, that would be hard for you to live with if something happens and then you're not home. Because I was the only support. There's no one here other than me, my wife, and my children. That's it. There's no family. There's no real friends that you can count on. So, but yeah, man, that was a very powerful thing that morning when I was sitting on the couch and I was praying and I was like, send me home. And then my whole body just felt it. Have you ever felt something like that before where your whole body is like, do this now?
Absolutely. That's a definite confirmation from your soul. It's at a soul level. It's not from your head. It's not
Yeah.
from fear. It's a confirmation from your soul that that's exactly what you're supposed to be doing.
See, that's a good way of describing it, because physically I don't know how to describe that to someone. But saying it's from the soul, like that, like that's exactly anything in life. If you're like you said, if someone's in a job that they hate and they feel it in their bones, it's like, yeah, it's because your soul is like, we need to do this instead, you know? But,
I
but how
think
many
things
people ignore that?
Well, I think things from a soul level oftentimes are indescribable in human words, but you feel it, you know it. And like you said, I mean, we are receiving those messages on a regular basis oftentimes, but we just are missing them because we're so distracted by the worldly stuff that we're told to focus on. Right.
Yeah.
That's why when we slow down enough and we hear these things and feel these things on a deeper level from a heart-based, heart-centered way of feeling it, you'll make decisions from that place as opposed from our mental state, right? And we end up oftentimes like through our supposed logical brain, we make decisions that take us to places that we don't want to be, right? Our intellect oftentimes takes us in the wrong direction. But when we start to make decisions from the heart, from that soul level, we end up right where we're supposed to be. And you don't regret those decisions. You don't regret making that choice, right? But when you make it from the intellect, from that monkey mind, you're like, oh, let me go do this because I know so much. And then all of a sudden you're like, why did I do this? It's not where we're supposed to be. That's something I've learned and continue to learn on a daily basis.
Yeah. And I would say another huge part of it is whatever they say, ask and you shall receive. So like whatever it is you ask for, when you have it, make sure don't lose that gratefulness. Don't lose that gratitude. I would say the two biggest lessons for me have been surrender and gratitude.
Absolutely.
Because like
it's another wonderful point is being grateful for what you get. I tell people when God gives you what you ask for, be grateful for it and watch it expand, right? But when you get it and then you have the disease of more and you're looking for the next best thing, you're going to regret that.
Yeah, that's why like now, like my life is a lot slower, and it like I said before, like I'm trying to get used to that because I'm not used to slow. I'm not used to calmness. 11 years in the military and then getting out and having these odd jobs. Like I know it's like now I know like it's for a greater purpose because like right now, even now, I'm like, what am I learning? Why you've made my life slower? There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Maybe to be more calm, to be more grateful, to be loving, and to truly serve what we're put here to do instead of like go, 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 go. Because in our monkey mind, oh, this has to get done right now. And it's like, no, just relax. It'll be fine.
Nope. It'll get done when it needs to get done.
That's okay. Yes, that's another concept is divine timing.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of touched on it, or it's like and we've talked about this before, like we live in a linear timeline, but God has no time. Like it's eternity. So like that's another thing about this whole past few months experience is everything, even right now, like we have everything that we need, right? But the way it's laid out is it's almost, I can see the perfection of the plan in real time.
Absolutely.
Like specifically right now, like financially, like we're not the greatest right now because I transitioned from one job to the other. But the way everything is set up is perfect timing. It's insane.
Yep. You'll always have what you need when you need it. Always.
But that's why, like we said, worrying about it's not going to change it. Just trust the process, as they say.
Absolutely. Live by faith.
But yeah, man, this is, I don't know. Is there any other lessons over the last few months you want to share with anybody?
I don't think so. Right this moment. I think that I kind of touched on some of the bigger points that I've been learning and continue to learn. Excited to be back on here and putting it out there. Excited to hear your growth and your expansion. My hope is to be able to share these things and to help people kind of slow down and hear our stories and see that all of us are going through this, all of us are experiencing this, and that, you know, when you do slow down enough and you're open, that you'll see your life is actually trying to lead you right to where you're supposed to be. And it often doesn't look like, most of the times doesn't look like how we think it's going to happen. And remember, we're always receiving exactly what we need, maybe not always what we think we need. So being open to that and just living in that flow, living in that divine alignment, and watching life really work out for you. So I think that's the biggest point I can send out there for today's message. And I think it's kind of what your message overall shows is gratitude and alignment and listening and surrender, right? So
Yeah, surrender. I would say probably the biggest point of this whole experience is trust and surrender.
absolutely.
That's one thing I say every day, no matter it could be a regular quote unquote day of the week, and I wake up and I'm like, God, I trust you and I surrender to you.
Absolutely.
And then that's what sets the tone for the rest of my day.
That's awesome.
So
well, very good, my brother. Very good. Appreciate hearing the updates.
yeah, trying to sum up the last couple months of enlightenment into an hour. Well, I'll touch on it a little bit more in more detail and in more deeper lessons, because I kind of gave a summarized version, but there are very specific things that have been pinpointed that were like, oh, okay.
For sure. We can definitely go deeper, and we can definitely go deeper and go longer than an hour next time. And, you know, kind of just really hone in on a few things and focus in on stuff so we can actually get to those deeper points. I think it's important for people to hear and understand those things.
Yeah.
And there's new things unfolding. There's new stuff coming out, right? Like, I mean, you and I are talking about some coaching stuff that's coming out. It would be great being able to try to help people expand even more. So lots of exciting things happening for sure.
Yeah, just remember, there's no matter what you're going through, there's always a grander purpose behind it.
Always. And it's always for your highest good. Always.
We don't always see it that way.
Nope. But it is always for your highest good. Yep.
Yep. We're back. There's going to be more episodes coming. So
yes, we will be consistently out here seeing you guys again. So much love to everybody.
And have a blessed day.